Mastering English communication is not just about learning vocabulary or grammar. It's about knowing how to make your voice heard, how to express ideas clearly, and how to connect emotionally. Whether you're speaking in a meeting, giving a presentation, or chatting with friends, the way you communicate defines your influence. This book will guide you to become a confident, effective communicator, no matter your current level of English. Stick with me till the end and make sure to subscribe, because mastering English communication is a journey that begins with the right mindset, and together we'll get you there. Chapter 1. Building the Foundation of English Communication. Mastering English communication begins not with perfect grammar, but with understanding the core elements that make any communication effective. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it, when you say it, and why you say it. To build a strong foundation in English communication, you must first understand the emotional and psychological aspects of communication. Language is not just words. It's the energy behind the words, the intention behind the sentences, and the connection that words create between people. When we communicate, we are creating bridges between our thoughts and the world around us. Language helps us to share our ideas, express our feelings, and understand others. But to truly master communication, we must first master ourselves. Communication is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice, awareness, and intention. Understanding the basics of communication. The first step in mastering English communication is to grasp the basics of communication itself. This is not exclusive to any one language. It applies to all communication, whether in English, French, Spanish, or any other language. Communication is about transferring thoughts, feelings, and ideas from one person to another. It is a two-way street. You speak, and someone listens. They speak, and you listen. But the essence of communication goes deeper than this. It's not just about exchanging information. It's about connection. It's about creating understanding and establishing rapport. In the realm of English, this becomes more powerful when you master the nuances of the language. Mastering English communication is not just about using correct grammar or large vocabulary. It's about using the right words at the right time, with the right tone and energy, to create clarity and understanding. The power of active listening. When we think about communication, we often focus on speaking, but effective communication starts with active listening. Active listening is the process of not only hearing the words being said, but truly understanding them. It's about focusing completely on the speaker, observing their body language, their tone, their pauses, and their emotions. Active listening in English involves understanding not just the words, but the cultural context, the subtle cues, and the non-verbal signals that accompany speech. Without active listening, communication is incomplete. You might hear the words, but you won't understand the message fully. In every conversation, listening should come first. Before you respond, take time to reflect on what the other person has said. Don't rush to speak. Don't focus on your next response. Focus on understanding. Listening deeply is an art form. It is a powerful tool that allows you to connect with the other person. It builds trust, demonstrates respect, and creates space for open dialogue. The better you listen, the better you can respond. And the better your responses, the clearer your communication. Non-verbal communication. The foundation of good communication in English is not limited to the words spoken. Your body language, eye contact, tone, and even silence speak volumes. Non-verbal cues often carry more weight than words themselves. A smile, a pause, a nod, or a gesture can convey more meaning than any sentence. These non-verbal signals help you create rapport and align with the emotions of others. In English communication, understanding the non-verbal cues is crucial. When you speak, make sure your body language matches your words. If your words say "I'm confident," but your body says "I'm nervous," people will feel that contradiction. It creates confusion. It weakens your message. Social masters understand that communication isn't just about what you say. It's about how you make people feel when you speak. If you want to master English communication, you must learn to use your body to strengthen your words, not contradict them. Expanding your vocabulary and expression. The richness of the English language gives you the ability to express your ideas and emotions in a multitude of ways. But mastering communication is not about knowing every word in the dictionary. It's about knowing the right words for the right context. A broad vocabulary allows you to speak with precision. It helps you choose words that carry the exact meaning you intend. But what truly matters is knowing when to use specific words. Using simple, clear words can be just as powerful as using complex ones. Mastering vocabulary is about balance. It's about speaking in a way that is appropriate for the situation, the audience, and the message you want to communicate. It's about using language to build clarity, not confusion. One of the biggest obstacles in mastering English communication is the fear of making mistakes. But the truth is, no one speaks perfectly all the time. Mistakes are a part of the learning process. The key is not to avoid mistakes, but to learn from them and adjust. The best communicators are not the ones who speak without error. They are the ones who communicate with clarity, purpose, and connection. And they are the ones who make others feel heard, understood, and valued. Building confidence in your communication. Mastering English communication starts with building confidence in yourself and your abilities. When you speak with confidence, you invite trust. You make people feel that you are in control of the situation and the conversation. Confidence doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean knowing everything. It means being comfortable with who you are and expressing yourself authentically. To build confidence in communication, start by speaking often. Start by speaking clearly. Start by speaking with intention. Confidence comes with practice. The more you speak, the more natural it becomes. The more you communicate, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more confident you become. In English, confidence in communication is also about accepting your accent, your tone, and your rhythm. Don't compare your communication to others. Speak in a way that feels natural to you, and the world will listen. Understanding cultural contexts in English communication. Communication Fontur. Communication in English is not just about words. It is about understanding the cultural context in which those words are spoken. In different cultures, communication styles vary widely. Some cultures value directness, while others value politeness and indirectness. Some prefer quick interactions, while others emphasize slow, thoughtful conversation. To master English communication, you must understand the cultural nuances that shape how people speak and interpret language. This understanding allows you to adapt your communication style to fit the cultural expectations of others, making you a more effective communicator in diverse settings. Mastering the art of English communication means being aware of these differences and adjusting your tone, pace, and approach to match the cultural context of the conversation. The power of clarity in English communication. Finally, the most important aspect of mastering English communication is clarity. Clear communication is the foundation of all understanding. If your message is unclear, people will misunderstand you. If your message is confusing, people will tune out. If your message is strong and clear, it will stick with them. The key to clarity is simplicity. Don't overcomplicate your sentences. Don't overload your words with jargon. Keep your message simple, direct, and focused. Great communicators know that clarity is not about speaking perfectly. It's about speaking with purpose. It's about delivering your message in a way that is easy to understand, but powerful enough to make an impact. Conclusion: the path to mastery. Mastering English communication is a lifelong journey. It starts with the fundamentals: active listening, emotional awareness, non-verbal communication, and building confidence in your voice. But most importantly, it is about becoming a student of others. It is about understanding the people you speak to and using your knowledge of the language to make deep, meaningful connections. You've already begun your journey. And every word, every sentence, every conversation brings you one step closer to becoming a master of English communication. Chapter 2: Mastering the Art of Listening. Listening is not the same as hearing. Hearing is passive. Listening is active. Hearing is a physiological process. Listening is an emotional experience. When you listen, you do more than just hear words. You absorb the feelings behind them. You understand the intent beneath them. You connect to the person speaking. Mastering the art of listening means learning to be fully present in every moment. It means suspending judgment, removing distractions, and giving your complete attention to the person in front of you. This is where true communication begins. The power of listening beyond words. Most people think communication begins when they speak, but communication begins when you listen. To truly understand someone, you must listen with your entire being, not just your ears, but your mind, your heart, and your body. When someone speaks, they are not only sharing information, they are sharing emotions. They are revealing their fears, their hopes, their doubts, and their desires. Listening is the bridge that connects these feelings to understanding. Without it, communication is hollow. With it, communication becomes a powerful tool for connection. Active listening, the key to connection. The first step to mastering listening is practicing active listening. Active listening means focusing not just on the words being said, but on the emotion and intent behind those words. It's not enough to simply hear the words. You must absorb the underlying message. You must give the speaker your full attention, suspend any judgment, and resist the urge to interrupt. Active listening requires you to tune in to both verbal and non-verbal cues. The tone of voice, the body language, the pauses, the emotion behind the words. When you listen actively, you don't just hear the message, you feel it. And that feeling is what makes communication meaningful. The power of silence in listening. Silence is one of the most powerful tools in communication. It's not about saying less. It's about creating space for the other person to express themselves. When you listen in silence, you allow the other person to feel heard without interruption. You create a safe space for them to share their thoughts and emotions. Too often, people rush to fill silence with their own words, fearing awkwardness or discomfort. But in reality, silence fosters connection. It shows the speaker that you value their words enough to give them time to be fully heard. In silence, you create the emotional space for the speaker to truly open up, and that's where deep communication happens. Listening without judgment. One of the most important aspects of effective listening is learning to listen without judgment. Most people listen with an agenda. They listen to respond. They listen to correct. They listen to change the other person's mind. But to truly master listening, you must listen without trying to change anything. You must listen without interpreting or judging. You must listen to understand, not to reply. This doesn't mean you agree with everything being said. It means you are open to hearing the person's perspective fully, without imposing your own opinions or assumptions. By removing judgment from the equation, you create a safe environment for authentic communication. People feel valued and understood when they don't feel criticized or dismissed. Empathy, the heart of listening. Empathy is the emotional core of listening. It is the ability to feel what the other person is feeling, to put yourself in their shoes, and to understand their emotions deeply. Empathetic listening requires you to connect emotionally with the speaker. It's not just about hearing their words, it's about experiencing their emotions with them. When you listen with empathy, you communicate that their feelings are valid. You show them that you care, and this makes all the difference in building trust and connection. Empathy allows you to not only hear the surface-level message, but to understand the deeper emotional context. It's this deeper understanding that forms the foundation of real communication. Listening to understand, not to fix. One of the biggest challenges in listening is the urge to fix things. When someone shares a problem, the natural reaction is to offer a solution. But the problem with this approach is that it shifts the focus from the speaker's feelings to your response. It invalidates their experience by implying they need to be fixed, instead of simply being heard. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is listen, without trying to solve anything. People don't always need answers. Sometimes they just need someone to listen. By listening without judgment or interruption, you create a space for the other person to process their emotions, gain clarity, and find their own solutions. Listening with full attention. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. Phones, emails, social media. multitasking. But to truly master the art of listening, you must learn to focus. When you give someone your attention, you give them a gift. People feel valued when they know they have your full attention. They feel heard when they see that you are present, not distracted or preoccupied with something else. Active listening requires focus. It means shutting out external distractions and giving the speaker your undivided attention. This simple act of focusing builds trust, rapport, and connection. The importance of non-verbal communication in listening. Listening is not just a verbal activity. It's a deeply physical experience. Our bodies communicate just as much as our words. When you listen with your body, you show the speaker that you are truly engaged. Your eye contact, posture, and facial expressions convey understanding, empathy, and attentiveness. Leaning forward slightly, nodding in agreement, maintaining eye contact, these small gestures tell the speaker, "I'm with you, I'm listening." Nonverbal communication creates a connection without words. It reinforces your active listening, and it shows the speaker that you are emotionally present. The impact of listening on relationship. Listening is the foundation of all strong relationships. It builds trust, fosters understanding, and deepens connection. In both personal and professional settings, the ability to listen well is one of the most valued skills. People are more likely to listen to you when they know you listen to them. They are more likely to follow your lead when they feel heard. Effective listening also prevents misunderstandings. It reduces conflicts and creates mutual respect. When you listen with empathy and clarity, you avoid the common pitfalls of miscommunication. Becoming a better listener every day. Mastering the art of listening is a continuous process. It's about being aware of your habits, your biases, your distractions, and learning to adjust them. To become a better listener, practice active listening in everyday conversations. Pay attention to not just what people are saying, but how they are feeling. Pay attention to their body language, tone, and emotional cues. The more you practice, the more natural listening becomes. You'll start to notice the deeper layers of communication, the feelings, the intent, the unspoken messages. And as you master listening, your relationships will deepen, your influence will grow, your communication will become more meaningful. Chapter 3. Speaking with clarity and purpose. The way you speak shapes the way people listen. It determines how your message is received, how much weight your words carry, and how effectively you connect with others. Clarity is the foundation of all great communication. Without it, your words become lost in confusion. Without purpose, your message lacks direction. Speaking with clarity and purpose is not about using big words or long sentences. It's about cutting through the noise, getting to the point, and making your message resonate with those who hear it. Every word you speak should have intention. Every sentence should have direction. Every pause should hold meaning. When you speak with clarity, people understand you easily. When you speak with purpose, they listen more attentively. The importance of clear communication. Clear communication is the key to effective interactions. It's the difference between being understood and being misunderstood. Without clarity, ideas become tangled. Without purpose, conversations drift. When you speak clearly, you create a sense of structure. You create an environment where people can follow your thoughts, track your message, and feel confident in the understanding of your words. Clarity is not just about simplicity. It's about precision. It's about choosing the right words to express exactly what you mean. Every word you use should be intentional, not excessive, not vague. When your words are precise, they cut through the clutter. They pierce through the fog of confusion. They provide direction, understanding, and action. Speaking with clarity does not mean speaking quickly. It means speaking slowly enough for people to follow, and with enough purpose for them to care. In the fast-paced world we live in, we often rush through our words, rushing to get everything out. But clarity comes through pause, through thought, through calm, purposeful speaking, leading with intention. Purposeful speaking begins with knowing exactly what you want to convey. When you speak with purpose, your words are focused. They are aligned with your intention and the message you wish to share. Without purpose, Speaking becomes an automatic process, where words spill out without control or awareness. The message becomes diluted, and the impact weakens. When you speak with purpose, you lead, you guide the conversation, you set the tone, you create the emotional connection. Purposeful speaking means choosing words that serve a goal. It's about deciding what you want the other person to feel, what you want them to understand, and what you want them to do with that information. The intention behind your words shapes their effect. Purposeful speaking drives people to act, to engage, to reflect, to change. Speaking without purpose is like a ship without a destination. It may move, but it will never reach its full potential. The power of brevity. One of the most powerful ways to speak with clarity and purpose is through brevity. The less you say, the more powerful it becomes. In our world of constant chatter, brevity commands attention. When you can express a thought in fewer words, it holds more impact. People value what is concise and focused. When your message is direct and to the point, people understand it quickly. They don't have to sift through unnecessary details. Brevity in speaking doesn't mean leaving out the essential parts. It means stripping away the unnecessary parts. It means getting to the heart of the message, without filler, without confusion. Speak what needs to be spoken, and leave the rest behind. The role of tone in clarity and purpose. Your tone is the vehicle that carries your words. Without the right tone, even the clearest message can fall flat. Without the right tone, even the most purposeful words can be misinterpreted. Tone is the emotional color of your communication. It sets the mood. It conveys emotion. It enhances meaning. Speaking with clarity isn't just about choosing the right words. It's about speaking them in the right way. A calm, confident tone gives your words weight. A warm tone invites people in. A firm tone asserts your authority. A soft tone creates empathy. When your tone matches your message, you communicate with integrity. Your words are received with the same emotional frequency you send them with. But if your tone contradicts your words, you create confusion. If you speak in anger, even the clearest message becomes a weapon. If you speak in fear, even the most important message may be ignored. Purposeful speaking requires emotional alignment between your words and your tone. This alignment creates authenticity, and authenticity builds trust. Listening is the foundation of clarity. Great communication is a two-way process. To speak with clarity, you must first understand. Listening is the foundation of all communication. Without listening, your words are hollow. By listening, you allow yourself to understand the context of the conversation, the emotions of the person speaking, and the needs of the audience. You don't just hear the words, you absorb the intent behind them. When you listen actively, you choose your response with intention. You adjust your tone, pace, and word choice to suit the person and the moment. You engage in the conversation rather than just speaking at it. Effective communication flows both ways. You speak, but you also listen. You influence, but you are also influenced. Engaging your audience, speaking for impact. It's one thing to speak clearly. It's another to speak in a way that engages people. To speak with impact, you must engage your audience emotionally. People remember how you make them feel long after the conversation is over. They remember the emotion you evoked, the connection you created, and the energy you shared. Engagement is the result of two things: speaking with clarity, speaking with emotion. Emotion gives your words life. Emotion makes your message stick. Emotion is the driving force behind connection. When you speak with clarity and purpose, you create space for engagement. You invite your audience in. You make them feel that your words are worth hearing. The best communicators know how to shift the energy in a room. They know how to use their voice to draw people in, to stir excitement, to create curiosity. By speaking with emotion and intention, you speak with purpose, and you speak for impact. The power of silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remain silent. Silence creates space for the message to sink in. Silence invites reflection. Silence allows the listener to process and respond. In moments of deep communication, pause between sentences. Let your words linger in the air. Let the silence carry the weight of what has been said. In a conversation, silence is not awkward. It is powerful. It is necessary. Silence speaks as loudly as words do. It creates anticipation. It strengthens the emotional impact of what has just been said. Speaking with confidence and authenticity, the most effective communicators are those who speak with authenticity. They don't try to be anyone else. They don't imitate others. They speak as they are, and this naturalness draws people in. Authenticity creates trust. It creates connection. It creates respect. When you speak confidently, people listen because they believe in you. They believe in your message. They believe that you are speaking from truth, not performance. Authenticity comes from knowing yourself, understanding your values, and being clear about your intentions. Once you know yourself, you can communicate effortlessly. Your words flow with ease. Your tone is steady, and your presence commands attention. Conclusion: the path to mastery. Mastering the art of speaking with clarity and purpose requires practice, awareness, and emotional alignment. It is not about having the perfect words, but about speaking with meaning. When you speak clearly, you make yourself understood. When you speak with purpose, you make yourself heard. Every conversation is an opportunity to build connection
and to share your thoughts
and to influence others. Mastering the art of communication is not just a skill, it's a way of building relationships, fostering understanding, and creating change. And as you continue your journey, keep this in mind. Every word you speak has the potential to shape the world around you. Make it count. Chapter 4: Effective Storytelling in Communication. Storytelling is the most powerful tool in communication. It's the bridge between raw information and human connection. Facts tell, but stories sell. Stories connect. Stories change hearts. Every human interaction is in some way a story being told. The question is not whether you tell stories, but how effectively you tell them. People don't remember statistics. They remember stories. They don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And stories have the power to make people feel deeply. The art of storytelling is knowing how to make your message resonate emotionally. When you tell a story, you invite your audience into an experience. You pull them into a world that feels real. A world where they can see, hear, and feel everything you want them to experience. The emotional power of stories. Why do stories have such power? Because they tap into something primal within us. Humans are wired for stories. From the earliest days of humanity, we've communicated through stories, around the campfire, in ancient scriptures, in songs. Stories are the currency of connection. They make us feel like we are not alone. They allow us to experience someone else's journey, to see the world through their eyes, to walk in their shoes. In every great story, there is an emotional arc. There's the tension that builds. There's the struggle. There's the triumph. There's the resolution. This emotional roller coaster is what keeps people engaged. A good story moves the heart and the mind. It pulls on emotions, joy, sadness, fear, hope, because these are the emotions that connect us to each other. In communication, you must understand this. People don't just want to hear information. They want to feel it. When you speak without an emotional connection, you may be heard, but you won't be remembered. But when you speak with a story, you create an emotional imprint. You make your message unforgettable. Structure. The key to great stories. Effective storytelling is not about just speaking randomly. It's about structure. A story needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. It needs tension and resolution. It needs a clear arc. It needs a hook to grab attention and a punch to leave an impact. The beginning sets the stage. It introduces the characters, the setting, and the conflict. It engages the listener, making them want to hear more. It's like the first few lines of a good song. It draws you in. The middle is the heart of the story. It's where the action takes place. It's where characters struggle, fail, grow, and evolve. The middle is where the tension rises and keeps the audience at the edge of their seat. It's the part that holds everything together, leading to the climax. The end is the resolution. It's where the struggle pays off. It's the moment when the character overcomes the challenge, learns the lesson, or finds the truth. The end is what leaves the audience satisfied, but also thinking, reflecting, and remembering. Without a clear structure, stories fall flat. They wander. They confuse. They lose momentum. Mastering storytelling means mastering structure. It's about knowing when to reveal information, when to build tension, and when to release it. Creating relatable characters. A key element in effective storytelling is the character. In every great story, the audience connects with the character. The character becomes a reflection of the audience's own struggles, hopes, and dreams. To make your story impactful, you need to create a relatable character. This character doesn't have to be a hero. They don't have to be perfect. In fact, the best characters have flaws, fears, and vulnerabilities. The audience connects with these imperfections. They see themselves in the character, which makes the story feel more real, more personal. The character doesn't have to be someone extraordinary. They just have to be human. They have to face challenges. They have to go on a journey. They have to learn and grow. When you tell a story, the character's journey should mirror the emotions you want the audience to feel. If your character is struggling with doubt, the audience should feel that doubt. If your character is triumphing over adversity, the audience should feel that victory. Relatable characters make your story resonate. They make your message stick. Using conflict to engage the audience. Conflict is the driving force of every great story. Without conflict, there's no plot. Without plot, there's no tension. Without tension, there's no engagement. The conflict is the problem the character must overcome. It's the struggle that keeps the audience hooked. It's what creates drama, excitement, and anticipation. In storytelling, conflict doesn't always have to be physical. It can be emotional, mental, or social. It can be the character's inner turmoil, their struggle with fear or insecurity, their conflict with others, or their battle with the environment around them. Whatever form the conflict takes, it must matter. It must challenge the character and drive the narrative forward. When you speak, you must create conflict, not in the sense of arguing, but in the sense of presenting a challenge that needs resolution. The conflict in your story is what keeps the audience interested. It gives them something to care about. Building tension and pacing. The key to keeping your audience engaged is pacing. Pacing determines how fast or slow the story moves. It controls the emotional rhythm of the narrative. Too slow, and the audience loses interest. Too fast, and the impact is lost. The best storytellers know how to build tension slowly. They know when to let the story breathe, when to drop a new piece of information, and when to escalate the stakes. Pacing is about timing. It's about knowing when to pause and when to push forward. It's about creating anticipation. It's about building the story gradually, letting it flow naturally until it reaches its peak. In every conversation, you must also understand pacing. You must know when to slow down, when to speed up, and when to give your listener a moment to absorb. Creating impact with the climax. The climax is the turning point. It's the moment when everything comes to a head. It's the peak of the story, where the tension finally breaks, and the character faces their greatest challenge. In storytelling, the climax is the most important moment. It's where the emotional payoff happens. It's where the character's journey reaches its resolution. When you speak, you must build up to your climax, that one powerful idea, that one transformative moment. This is where your message hits home. It's where the audience sees the value of your story, feels the emotion behind it, and is moved by the lesson you're sharing. The climax is the heart of the message. It's where everything connects, where everything falls into place. The art of conclusion. A great story ends with resolution, but it doesn't end abruptly. The conclusion is the moment when you tie up the loose ends, when the character's journey comes to a satisfying close. In speaking, your conclusion should leave a lasting impact. It should reinforce your message. It should make the audience feel that your story mattered. Your ending doesn't have to be dramatic, but it must be meaningful. It should leave the listener thinking, reflecting, and perhaps even changed. A good ending is simple, but it is powerful. It brings everything together and allows the audience to move forward, carrying the lesson with them. The power of storytelling in communication. In communication, storytelling is the most powerful way to share an idea, to connect emotionally, and to influence others. It is not about telling a story for the sake of it. It's about using stories to deliver your message, to make it memorable, to make it feel real. When you master storytelling, you can make even the most mundane message resonate. You can take your ideas from abstract concept to personal experiences. You can transform ordinary information into something that touches hearts, sparks action, and changes minds. In communication, stories are the bridge between data and emotion. They are the gateway to understanding. They are the key to creating connection. And when you speak with the power of storytelling, your communication becomes unforgettable. Chapter 5. Building emotional resilience in communication. Emotional resilience is the ability to stay strong, calm, and clear in the face of adversity. It's about not letting external circumstances control your emotions, especially in communication. The stronger your emotional resilience, the more confident and composed you are in your interactions with others. When we communicate, emotions inevitably come into play. Sometimes those emotions are positive: excitement, happiness, passion. Other times they're more challenging: frustration, anger, disappointment, or fear. And then there are moments when emotions are unpredictable, confusing, or overwhelming. The difference between a resilient communicator and one who falters is the ability to maintain composure, regardless of how intense the emotional climate gets. Understanding emotional resilience. Emotional resilience in communication means that you can interact with others effectively, even when emotions are running high. You don't let frustration or anger cloud your judgment. You don't let criticism or rejection derail your confidence. You don't lose control when someone challenges you. Instead, you respond with clarity, staying grounded, staying true to your intentions. Emotional resilience is not about suppressing your feelings. It's about understanding them, processing them, and responding to them appropriately. It's the ability to feel without being overwhelmed by your feelings. Building emotional resilience in communication starts with awareness. Awareness of your emotional triggers, awareness of how your emotions affect the message you send, and awareness of how others' emotions influence the dynamic. The role of self-awareness in resilience. Self-awareness is the first step in building emotional resilience. When you are aware of your emotional state, you can make better decisions about how to communicate in challenging situations. The emotionally resilient communicator knows when they are becoming upset or anxious, and they can pause, take a deep breath, and reassess the situation before responding. They don't let their emotions dictate the conversation. Instead, they control their emotions by staying present and centered. Self-awareness also allows you to recognize patterns in your emotional responses. You may notice that you tend to react defensively when criticized, or that you get anxious when speaking in groups. These realizations give you the opportunity to practice new responses, to retrain your brain to stay calm and composed, and to shift your emotional state to one that serves your communication goals. The more aware you are of your own emotions, the better you can regulate them in communication. Self-awareness creates a space between feeling and reacting, a space where you can choose your response instead of being controlled by emotion. The power of emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is the skill of managing your emotions, especially in stressful or emotional situations. When you build this skill, you can respond to others with emotional clarity, even when their emotions are intense. Emotional regulation doesn't mean shutting down or ignoring your feelings. It means acknowledging your feelings without letting them take over. It means recognizing when you are angry, frustrated, or nervous, but choosing to respond in a calm and controlled manner. For example, if someone criticizes you in a meeting, your first instinct might be to defend yourself or feel defensive. But emotional regulation allows you to stay composed, to listen to the feedback, and to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. The key to emotional regulation is learning to pause when you feel a surge of emotion. Take a breath and create space between the stimulus and your response. This moment of pause allows you to process your emotions, choose your words carefully, and engage in a way that serves the conversation, not derails it. Emotional regulation also means setting emotional boundaries. You are not responsible for how others feel, nor are you obligated to absorb their emotions. When someone else becomes upset or angry, you can empathize without internalizing their emotional state. You can be present without letting their emotions disrupt your inner peace, building resilience through perspective. Emotional resilience also involves shifting your perspective. When something goes wrong, or when you face criticism, it's easy to get caught up in the emotional moment, but resilient communicators are able to take a step back, see the bigger picture, and respond from a place of perspective, not reaction. For example, if someone disagrees with your point in a meeting, your initial reaction might be to feel rejected or defensive. But resilient communicators see this moment as an opportunity for growth. They understand that disagreement is part of the process. It's a chance to refine their ideas, to clarify their message, and to engage in constructive dialogue. Shifting your perspective from a fixed mindset, I'm right and they're wrong, to a growth mindset. This is an opportunity to learn and improve. Strengthens emotional resilience. It allows you to stay open, to embrace feedback, and to engage with others in a way that fosters collaboration, not conflict. Responding, not reacting. One of the core principles of emotional resilience in communication is the ability to respond, not react. Reactivity is an automatic, emotional response to a stimulus, and often it's driven by unconscious feelings of insecurity, fear, or anger. Response, on the other hand, is a conscious decision to choose how to engage in the moment. A reactive communicator might respond to an insult with anger, or defend themselves immediately after being criticized. A responsive communicator takes a moment to breathe, reflect, and then responds thoughtfully, choosing words that are both effective and aligned with their values. The key difference between reaction and response is control. A reactive communicator loses control to their emotions. A responsive communicator maintains control over their emotional state and chooses how to engage. To master emotional resilience, you must learn to pause before reacting. You must create that space between stimulus and response, where you can choose the best course of action based on the situation, not your emotional impulse. The role of empathy in resilience. Empathy is another cornerstone of emotional resilience. When you are able to empathize with someone else's feelings, you can connect on a deeper level, even in challenging conversations. Empathy allows you to understand the emotional context behind words. It allows you to feel what the other person is feeling and to respond with care and understanding. When you listen with empathy, you can stay emotionally grounded. Even when the conversation becomes difficult, empathy helps you stay focused on the other person's needs rather than getting lost in your own emotions. However, empathy doesn't mean absorbing someone else's emotions. You can empathize with someone's pain or frustration without letting it overwhelm your own emotional state. This is an important distinction because if you absorb too much of the other person's emotions, you risk losing your own emotional balance. Empathy is about emotional attunement, not emotional absorption. It's about understanding someone else's perspective without letting their emotions take over yours. Cultivating emotional resilience through practice. Emotional resilience in communication is a skill that grows through practice. It's about continuously learning to manage your emotions, adjust your mindset, and navigate challenging situations with calm and clarity. Each conversation is an opportunity to strengthen your resilience. Every emotional challenge is an opportunity to practice pausing, listening with empathy, and responding thoughtfully. Start small. In low-stakes conversations, practice emotional regulation. Notice your emotional triggers. Take a pause before responding to emotional stimuli. Practice shifting your perspective from a reactive stance to a responsive one. Over time, these small moments of practice will build your emotional resilience, making you a more confident and composed communicator in every situation. Conclusion: the power of emotional resilience. Building emotional resilience in communication isn't about never feeling frustrated, angry, or upset. It's about learning to manage those emotions in a way that doesn't undermine your message. It's about creating emotional clarity, choosing your responses with intention, and communicating with confidence and respect. When you master emotional resilience, you become an effective communicator, not because you're immune to emotional challenges, but because you've learned how to stay grounded in the face of them. This resilience doesn't just make you a better communicator, it makes you a better listener, a better leader, and a better human being. And with every conversation, you grow stronger, calmer, and more confident in your ability to connect with others. Chapter 6: Navigating Difficult Conversations with Emotional Strength. Difficult conversations are inevitable. They happen in every area of life: personal relationships, workplaces, social circles. What sets great communicators apart is their ability to navigate these conversations with grace and emotional strength. Difficult conversations are not easy. They stir emotions. They challenge beliefs. They test patience and understanding. But the key to mastering these conversations lies not in avoiding conflict, but in how you respond to it. The way you handle a difficult conversation defines your emotional strength. It reflects your ability to remain grounded, to stay true to yourself, and to communicate with clarity, even in the face of tension. Understanding the nature of difficult conversation. A difficult conversation often arises when emotions are high, when opinions clash, when expectations are unmet. It can be a conversation where there is disagreement, conflict, or even hurt feelings. Difficult conversations aren't limited to moments of anger or frustration. They also arise in times of vulnerability, discussing sensitive topics like personal failures, hurt feelings, or deep insecurities. In every difficult conversation, there is a point where the emotional temperature rises. This is where most people falter. They let the emotions take over, and they either react defensively, withdraw emotionally, or let their anger cloud their judgment. But those with emotional strength see this moment differently. They see it as an opportunity to show resilience, to remain calm, and to guide the conversation toward a positive outcome. Staying calm in the face of emotion. The first step in navigating difficult conversations is emotional control. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending that nothing is wrong. It means having the strength to acknowledge your feelings without letting them take over your behavior. When you're in the middle of a tense conversation, it's easy to react impulsively, to raise your voice, to shut down, to become defensive. But reacting this way only escalates the conflict. The key to emotional strength in difficult conversations is pause. Before you respond, take a moment to breathe. Pause. Feel the emotion. Acknowledge it, but don't let it dictate your words. This moment of pause is crucial. It gives you time to process your thoughts, to calm your mind, and to prepare yourself to respond with intention, rather than reacting out of anger, fear, or frustration. Active listening in difficult conversation. Emotional strength in conversation is also rooted in active listening. When emotions are high, we often become more focused on our own feelings and responses than on what the other person is saying. We interrupt. We defend ourselves. We tune out. But the most emotionally resilient communicators understand the power of active listening. Active listening means being fully present. It means listening to understand, not to respond. It means listening to the words, the tone, the body language, and the emotions behind the words. By listening deeply, you create space for the other person to express themselves fully, and you demonstrate respect for their perspective. This act alone can de-escalate even the most difficult conversation. When someone feels heard, their defenses drop, their emotions calm, and suddenly the conversation becomes more productive, more open, and more constructive. Active listening is not just about hearing words. It's about listening with empathy, with understanding, and with patience. Emotional validation and empathy. When emotions run high in difficult conversations, one of the most powerful tools you have is empathy. Empathy is the ability to feel and understand what the other person is going through. It means acknowledging their emotional state without judgment. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything the other person says, but it does mean acknowledging their feelings. It means letting them know, "I hear you, I understand where you're coming from." In a tense conversation, this act of emotional validation can work wonders. It helps to soften the emotional tension. It makes the other person feel understood. And when people feel understood, they are more likely to listen, more likely to cooperate, and more likely to find common ground. Empathy allows you to step outside of your own emotional response and connect with the other person's emotions. It helps you to bridge the gap between conflicting perspectives. In difficult conversations, the more empathetic you are, the more likely you are to create a calm, productive environment, staying true to your values. In emotionally charged conversations, it's easy to lose sight of your values. When someone challenges you, criticizes you, or accuses you of something, it's tempting to respond defensively. But emotional strength comes from staying true to yourself, to your values, to your principles, and to your integrity. When you react out of insecurity, fear, or anger, you may regret it later. But when you stay grounded in your values, your responses will be measured, respectful, and aligned with your true self. Emotional strength is about maintaining a sense of self-respect, even in moments of tension. When you stand firm in your values, you don't need to raise your voice or fight back. You can calmly and assertively express yourself, knowing that your integrity speaks for itself. In difficult conversations, always ask yourself, what is my intention here? What is my goal in this conversation? If your goal is to defend yourself or win, you're likely to escalate the conflict. But if your goal is to understand, to resolve, and to maintain respect, you'll find the conversation flowing toward a positive conclusion. Dealing with anger and conflict. Sometimes, no matter how calm you remain, anger will still enter the conversation. Either you or the other person may become frustrated or angry. This is the true test of emotional strength. When anger arises, it clouds judgment and creates barriers. When faced with anger, you must stay calm. You must not match the intensity of the emotion. Instead, you must bring emotional regulation into the room. If you respond with anger, you add fuel to the fire. But if you respond with calmness, you can help to de-escalate the situation. One of the most powerful tools in handling anger in communication is self-regulation. This involves recognizing when you are starting to feel angry, acknowledging it, and then choosing to stay composed. It's important to understand that anger is a natural emotion, but it should never be the driving force in a conversation. You control your emotional state, and in turn, you control the direction of the conversation. The role of timing in difficult conversations. Timing is key in difficult conversations. Knowing when to speak, when to pause, and when to step back is crucial. Sometimes the best thing you can do is take a break. Give yourself a moment to breathe, to process, to let the emotions settle. In those moments, you allow your mind to regain clarity and your emotions to reset. It's not about avoiding the conversation, but about allowing yourself to approach it with fresh energy and perspective. Timing ensures that when you do speak, your words are aligned with the moment, and they have a much greater impact. The power of conflict resolution. The ability to navigate a difficult conversation doesn't just help you survive it, it helps you resolve it. Conflict resolution is not about winning the conversation. It's about finding common ground, understanding the needs and emotions of both parties, and working together to reach a solution. A resilient communicator does not shy away from conflict. They approach it with curiosity and compassion. They see conflict as an opportunity to grow, to understand, and to build stronger connections. By mastering emotional strength in communication, you turn conflict into an opportunity to learn, to evolve, and to connect more deeply with those around you. Conclusion: strength in communication. Difficult conversations will always arise, but how you handle them defines your ability to communicate effectively. The ability to stay emotionally strong, calm, and grounded is the foundation of successful communication. In those moments of tension, take a breath. Pause. Listen with empathy. Speak with intention, and stay true to yourself. Because when you approach difficult conversations with emotional strength, you transform them into opportunities for connection, understanding, and growth. Chapter 7. Building assertiveness in communication. Assertiveness is the quiet strength that allows you to communicate your needs, desires, and opinions clearly, without aggression or passivity. It is the balance between standing up for yourself and respecting others. Being assertive is not about being forceful. It's not about dominating conversations or pushing others aside. It's about being clear, respectful, and confident in your communication. In essence, assertiveness is about owning your space, both physically and emotionally, and doing so with respect for the people around you. Assertiveness is a skill that is not always easy to master, but once you understand it, you will notice how much it transforms your relationships, your professional life, and your inner peace. What assertiveness really means. To be assertive means to communicate your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs in an open, honest, and respectful manner. It's the ability to express yourself without apologizing for your presence or your needs. Assertiveness is the opposite of being passive. Passive communicators often suppress their feelings, avoid conflict, and have a hard time standing up for themselves. They may say yes when they mean no, and hide their true emotions to avoid upsetting others. Assertiveness is also the opposite of being aggressive. Aggressive communicators may dominate conversations, interrupt, and disregard others' opinions. They may try to control the situation, often leaving others feeling disrespected or unheard. Assertive communicators, however, can express their needs clearly and respectfully. They can say no without guilt, express their opinions without fear, and stand up for themselves without harming others. True assertiveness is about balance. It's about respecting both your own boundaries and the boundaries of others. It's about creating a space where you can be yourself and allow others to do the same. The importance of assertiveness in communication. Assertiveness is essential for clear, effective communication. Without assertiveness, your message may be lost, misunderstood, or ignored. It's the foundation of good relationships, in work, in family, in social situations, and in romantic partnerships. When you communicate assertively, you're saying, I value myself and my needs, and I also value and respect yours. Assertiveness prevents miscommunication because it ensures that everyone is on the same page. It allows you to express yourself in a way that is both direct and empathetic. It creates healthy boundaries and fosters mutual respect. Without assertiveness, you may find yourself constantly compromising your own needs, leaving you feeling frustrated, misunderstood, or overwhelmed. But when you communicate assertively, you take charge of your emotional landscape. You express your feelings in a healthy, balanced way, and you avoid the resentment that comes with being passive or aggressive. Building self-awareness for assertiveness. The first step to becoming assertive is developing self-awareness. You need to know your needs, values, and emotions in order to communicate them effectively. Ask yourself, what do I need in this situation? What do I want to say? How do I want to be treated? Understanding your emotional triggers is also key. What makes you feel disrespected? What makes you feel hurt? Being aware of these emotional cues will allow you to express yourself more clearly without overreacting or suppressing your feelings. Self-awareness helps you understand your own needs and boundaries, and it gives you the confidence to communicate them. Without it, assertiveness becomes difficult because you lack clarity about what you need or want. The more in tune you are with yourself, the more confidently and clearly you can express your thoughts and feelings. The power of I statements. One of the key tools of assertive communication is the use of I statements. Rather than saying, "You never listen to me," or "You always ignore my ideas," you can say, "I feel unheard when my ideas are overlooked." By using I statements, you take responsibility for your emotions, and you avoid placing blame on the other person. This helps the other person understand how their actions affect you, without feeling attacked or defensive. I statements also make your message more direct and personal. Instead of accusing someone or criticizing their behavior, you're expressing your feelings, which opens up a space for conversation. The goal of assertive communication is not to fight, but to create understanding. An example: instead of saying "you're being rude," say "I feel hurt when you interrupt me." Instead of "you're always late," that is, you say "I feel frustrated when we don't start on time." By using I statements, you focus on your feelings and the situation, not the person. This creates a non-confrontational space for dialogue, and it fosters mutual respect. Non-verbal communication and assertiveness. Assertiveness isn't just about the words you say. It's also about how you say them. Your body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice are powerful components of your communication. Non-verbal cues can support or undermine your message. If your words say "I'm confident," but your body language says "I'm unsure," the inconsistency creates confusion. People will sense the lack of alignment and may question your message. To communicate assertively, your body language must align with your words. Stand tall, make eye contact, and speak with a steady, calm voice. Avoid crossing your arms, looking down, or speaking too softly. Your posture says a lot about your emotional state. If you stand with your shoulders back and your head held high, you project confidence and authority. If you slouch or shrink away, you give off the impression of insecurity or submission. Your voice also plays a major role in assertiveness. Speak clearly, with a steady pace and volume. Don't rush through your words, and don't speak so softly that you're barely heard. A strong, steady voice communicates confidence, while a shaky voice or a whisper signals uncertainty. Setting boundaries with assertiveness. Assertiveness is about knowing when and how to set boundaries. You have the right to say no without feeling guilty. You have the right to protect your time, your space, and your energy. Setting boundaries is an essential part of self-care. It helps you preserve your emotional health, and it prevents you from becoming overwhelmed by the demands of others. When setting a boundary, it's important to communicate it clearly. Rather than saying "I can't do that," say "I'm unable to help right now because I have other priorities." Rather than saying "I don't like this," and say "I feel uncomfortable when this happens." Your boundaries should be firm but respectful. You don't have to apologize for setting limits. Boundaries protect your emotional well-being and prevent you from overextending yourself. Dealing with pushback. Not everyone will appreciate your assertiveness. Some people may try to push back, test your boundaries, or make you feel guilty for saying no. It's important to stand your ground when this happens. Remember, assertiveness is not about pleasing everyone. It's about protecting yourself and your needs while still being respectful of others. If someone challenges your boundaries, don't back down. Stay calm and repeat your position if needed. You don't need to explain yourself in great detail. Simply state your needs clearly and confidently. By doing this, you teach others how to respect you. You show that your boundaries are not negotiable and that you value your own well-being. The power of saying no. One of the biggest challenges to assertiveness is the fear of saying no. We worry about disappointing others, hurting their feelings, or being seen as selfish. But saying no is not selfish. It's necessary. You cannot be everything to everyone. You cannot meet every demand or expectation. When you say no respectfully, you protect your time and energy. You make room for the things that truly matter to you. You honor your own needs and prioritize your well-being. To say no assertively, use I statements. I'm unable to take on this project right now. I need to decline because I'm focusing on other priorities. I can't commit to that because I need to maintain balance in my schedule. Saying no with confidence is empowering. It frees you from unnecessary stress and allows you to live according to your values. Conclusion: embracing your assertive self. Being assertive is about finding your voice and using it. It's about speaking with confidence, standing firm in your values, and respecting both your needs and the needs of others. Assertiveness gives you the power to communicate authentically, to set healthy boundaries, and to navigate difficult situations with emotional clarity. It's a skill that strengthens every relationship, personal, professional, and social. When you speak assertively, you gain the respect of others, you gain control of your own emotions, and you gain the power to shape your world. Mastering assertiveness means mastering yourself, and when you master yourself, you can communicate with confidence and clarity, knowing that your voice matters. Chapter 8: Mastering Emotional Intelligence in Communication. It is the ability to perceive, understand, and manage emotions, both your own and others. Emotional intelligence, EI, is the hidden force behind all meaningful communication. Mastering emotional intelligence is the key to becoming an exceptional communicator, because the best communicators don't just talk, they connect. Communication is not only about exchanging words, it's about exchanging emotions. It's about reading the room, understanding the feelings of the people you interact with, and managing the emotions that come up during every conversation. The ability to communicate with emotional intelligence sets the foundation for building trust, empathy, and influence. In every conversation, you are not just responding to words, you are responding to feelings. You are navigating the emotional currents of the interaction. And the better you are at managing your emotions and understanding the emotions of others, what is emotional intelligence in communication, the better your communication becomes. Self-awareness, the ability to recognize and understand your emotions. Self-regulation, the ability to control your emotions and stay in control of your reactions. Emotional intelligence is often broken down into 5 components. Motivation, using emotional drive to achieve goals. Empathy, understanding and sharing the feelings of others. Social skills, the ability to build relationships, communicate effectively, and resolve conflicts. In communication, these elements combine to create a more meaningful and impactful exchange. When you are self-aware, you understand how your emotions affect your speech, your tone, and your body language. When you self-regulate, you control those emotions and communicate in a calm, collected manner. When you're motivated, your passion and clarity shine through in every word. When you show empathy, you deeply connect with others, making them feel heard, understood, and valued. And when you use your social skills, you create harmony, resolve misunderstandings, and build lasting relationships. Mastering emotional intelligence means integrating these elements seamlessly into your communication. It means becoming aware of your own emotional state, reading the emotional state of others, and choosing your responses with emotional wisdom. Self-awareness, the first step in mastering EI. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. In communication, self-awareness allows you to identify your emotional triggers and manage them. It is the ability to recognize and understand your emotions and how they affect your thoughts and behavior. If you know that you become defensive when criticized, instead of reacting emotionally, if you recognize when you're getting frustrated, you can prepare yourself to respond calmly. You can pause and regain composure, ensuring you don't lash out or say something you regret. Self-awareness also means understanding the impact of your emotions on others. Your mood and emotional state don't exist in a vacuum. They affect your body language, your tone, and even the words you choose. By being aware of your emotional state, you can adjust your approach and communicate more effectively. You don't need to be emotionally perfect to be self-aware. You simply need to be honest with yourself. By regularly checking in with your emotions, you can ensure that your communication is aligned with your intentions, rather than being influenced by unconscious emotions. Self-regulation, managing your emotional response. Self-regulation is the ability to manage your emotions, particularly in moments of stress, frustration, or anger. It is the ability to remain calm, focused, and composed, even when faced with challenging emotions or situations. In communication, self-regulation is essential. When emotions are high, the risk of saying things you don't mean or reacting impulsively increases. Self-regulation allows you to choose your responses instead of being driven by your emotions. This is particularly important when dealing with difficult conversations. When someone challenges you, criticizes you, or disagrees with you, it's easy to become defensive. But when you regulate your emotions, you can take a moment to breathe, calm yourself, and respond with clarity. Self-regulation also means being adaptable. Sometimes emotions in a conversation need to be matched. If someone is upset, showing empathy and matching their emotional tone can help create connection. Other times you may need to take the lead in shifting the emotional state of the conversation, calming down a heated discussion or uplifting a stagnant one, so that your external communication reflects your true intention. Self-regulation is about mastering your internal emotional world, not your immediate emotional impulses. Empathy, the heart of connection. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. In communication, empathy means tuning into the emotions of the person you are speaking to and responding with understanding. Empathy is what allows you to connect deeply with others, to make them feel heard, and to make them feel safe in expressing themselves. When you communicate with empathy, you create an environment where the other person feels understood, they feel validated, they feel valued. And this makes them more likely to open up, listen to you, and work with you to solve any issue. Empathy is not just about understanding the words someone says, but also about sensing the unspoken emotions behind those words. It's about recognizing body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions, and using that information to guide your response. But empathy isn't just about understanding others. It's about emotional sharing. When you respond empathetically, you align yourself with the emotional state of the other person. You share in their joy, their sadness, their frustration, their excitement. You make them feel less alone and more connected to you. The more empathetic you are, the deeper your communication becomes. It creates intimacy, trust, and mutual respect. It allows you to see the world through the other person's eyes and fosters understanding on a much deeper level. Social skills, building relationships through emotional intelligence. Social skills are the tools that allow you to build and maintain relationships. These skills are deeply rooted in emotional intelligence because effective communication requires the ability to manage both your emotions and the emotions of others. Social skills encompass a wide range of abilities, from listening actively and providing feedback to resolving conflicts and leading teams. But at their core, social skills are about creating a connection with others. When you communicate with emotional intelligence, you are more likely to build trust, resolve conflicts, and lead with authenticity. You know when to speak, when to listen, and when to act. You know how to engage others, how to bring people together, and how to resolve differences without escalating conflict. Social skills also involve the ability to inspire and motivate others. When you are emotionally attuned to others, you can recognize their needs and desires and communicate in ways that resonate with them. You can make them feel supported, encouraged, and valued. The impact of emotional intelligence on communication. The most emotionally intelligent communicators are not the ones with the most words. They are the ones who use their words wisely. They are the ones who know how to connect emotionally, how to manage their emotions, and how to use their understanding of others to guide the conversation. When you communicate with emotional intelligence, you create deeper, more meaningful connections. You build trust quickly. You create a space where people feel understood, valued, and respected. Your words become powerful tools for change. By mastering emotional intelligence in communication, you become more than just a good speaker. You become someone who knows how to connect, how to inspire, and how to influence with authenticity. Emotional intelligence in communication makes you a better listener, a better speaker, and a better leader. It allows you to engage people at a deeper level and to move them in ways that go beyond words. Conclusion: the power of emotional intelligence in communication. Mastering emotional intelligence in communication is the key to becoming an exceptional communicator. It allows you to express your thoughts clearly, to listen deeply, and to connect with others on a profound level. When you master emotional intelligence, you communicate with clarity, respect, and empathy. You lead with emotional awareness, and you influence others with understanding and care. In every conversation, you don't just convey information, you convey connection. And that is the true power of emotional intelligence in communication. Chapter 9. Overcoming communication barriers. Communication is a bridge, but like any bridge, it has obstacles. There are barriers, invisible walls that prevent messages from flowing smoothly from one person to another. These barriers can come in many forms: emotional, psychological, physical, and even cultural. Some barriers are obvious. You can see them clearly in a miscommunication, a misunderstanding, or a failed conversation. Others are more subtle, operating in the background, quietly influencing how we interact without our awareness. But what makes communication truly effective is the ability to recognize and overcome these barriers. Mastering communication is not about avoiding obstacles. It's about learning how to navigate through them to ensure that your message is received with clarity and understanding. The different types of communication barriers. Barriers to communication can take many forms, but they generally fall into a few key categories. Let's explore the most common ones that hinder clear, open communication. 1. Language barriers. The most obvious barrier is the language itself. If two people speak different languages, communication becomes nearly impossible without translation. Even when people speak the same language, misunderstandings can arise due to different dialects, vocabulary, or accents. Misunderstandings can also occur when words have different meanings in different contexts. For example, words like careful, confident, or sensitive can take on different meanings based on the context and the person speaking them. The key to overcoming language barriers is making sure both parties understand each other clearly, and, if necessary, simplifying the language used to ensure comprehension. 2. Emotional barriers. Emotions are powerful forces in communication. When we communicate, we bring our feelings into the conversation. But these emotions can sometimes cloud the message. When we are angry, frustrated, or sad, we may struggle to express ourselves clearly, and the other person may struggle to understand us. Similarly, emotions like fear, guilt, or embarrassment can prevent us from expressing our true thoughts. In these situations, the other person may misinterpret our silence or vague responses as a lack of interest or unwillingness to communicate. Overcoming emotional barriers requires emotional intelligence. The ability to recognize your emotions, understand their impact on your communication, and regulate them so that they don't interfere with your message. Physical barriers. Physical barriers include anything that disrupts the physical transmission of your message.
It could be noise,
A loud environment, a poor phone connection, or interruptions that prevent you from communicating effectively. In this digital age, physical barriers also include issues like poor internet connection during virtual meetings, or even the distractions of our smartphones during face-to-face conversations. Overcoming physical barriers requires awareness and adjustment. If you're in a noisy environment, move to a quieter space. If you're communicating online, ensure the technology is working properly. If distractions are affecting your conversation, politely remove them so both parties can focus on the message at hand. Cultural barrier. Cultural barriers. Cultural differences can pose a significant barrier to effective communication. Cultural norms, beliefs, and values shape how we interpret messages, express emotions, and even respond to others. What is considered polite in one culture may be seen as rude in another. What one culture sees as a friendly gesture, another may interpret as a threat or intrusion. The key to overcoming cultural barriers is awareness and respect. Before entering any cross-cultural conversation, take time to understand the cultural background and communication style of the other person. Be aware of non-verbal cues, body language, and other cultural nuances that may influence the way your message is received. 5. Psychological barriers. Psychological barriers are internal, mental barriers that can hinder effective communication. These include biases, stereotypes, assumptions, and personal beliefs that shape how we perceive others and their messages. For example, if you have a preconceived notion about a person based on their appearance or background, you may not listen to their words with an open mind. Similarly, if you hold a deep-seated belief that conflicts with the other person's view, it can prevent effective communication. Overcoming psychological barriers requires openness and a willingness to challenge your own assumptions. By recognizing your biases and actively working to set them aside, you create a more open space for communication, free from judgment or preconceived ideas. Being open-minded and non-judgmental creates an environment where honest dialogue can take place. How to overcome communication barriers? The first step in overcoming communication barriers is awareness. You must first recognize the obstacles that exist, both within yourself and in the environment. This means acknowledging when you are emotionally triggered, when you are holding on to assumptions, or when external distractions are getting in the way. Once you've identified the barriers, the next step is to actively work to overcome them. Here are some practical steps to help you navigate through common barriers. 1. Practice active listening. One of the most effective ways to overcome communication barriers is through active listening. When you listen actively, you give your full attention to the speaker. You focus on understanding their message, rather than thinking about your response. Active listening also involves asking clarifying questions when you're unsure about something, and summarizing the message to ensure that you've understood it correctly. This not only reduces misunderstandings, but also shows the speaker that you value their perspective. 2. Be mindful of nonverbal communication. Your body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice can convey as much information as your words. When you're speaking, make sure your nonverbal cues match your message. Maintain eye contact, keep an open posture, and pay attention to the other person's body language as well. By being mindful of nonverbal communication, you create a more trusting and engaging environment for conversation. 3. Manage your emotions. Emotion is a powerful force in communication. To overcome emotional barriers, you must first learn to manage your own emotions. This means recognizing when you are feeling triggered or upset and taking steps to stay calm before responding. When you're calm and composed, you're able to think more clearly and communicate with greater purpose. If you find yourself becoming emotional during a conversation, take a deep breath, pause, and give yourself time to regain control. By managing your emotions, you can communicate more effectively and with greater emotional clarity. 4. Be clear and concise. Often, miscommunication arises from unclear messages. To overcome this barrier, strive for clarity and conciseness in your communication. Use simple, direct language. Avoid jargon, ambiguity, or complex sentence structures. The clearer you make your message, the easier it is for the other person to understand and respond to it. And if you feel that your message might be misunderstood, take the time to rephrase it or ask for feedback to ensure that your point has been received. 5. Cultivate empathy and open-mindedness. Empathy is the cornerstone of overcoming communication barriers. When you empathize with the other person, you open yourself up to their perspective. You see their emotions, understand their needs, and become more receptive to their point of view. Empathy allows you to overcome cultural, psychological, and emotional barriers because it creates understanding and connection. By actively seeking to understand the other person's feelings and thoughts, you break down the walls that prevent effective communication. 6. Stay open to feedback. One of the most important ways to improve communication is by staying open to feedback. If someone tells you that they don't understand your point, or if they express that they felt hurt by something you said, don't react defensively. Instead, listen carefully to their feedback and use it to adjust your approach. Constructive feedback helps you recognize communication barriers that you might not even be aware of, and it allows you to improve your future interactions. Conclusion: becoming a master of clear communication. The ability to overcome communication barriers is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. By recognizing and addressing the obstacles that hinder clear communication, you create more meaningful connections with others. You foster understanding, trust, and collaboration. Remember, communication is not just about talking. It's about connecting emotionally, mentally, and socially. And when you learn to overcome the barriers that separate people, You open the door to deeper, more effective communication. By mastering the art of overcoming communication barriers, you unlock the potential for more fulfilling relationships, stronger professional connections, and an overall more harmonious way of engaging with the world. Chapter 10. The Art of Persuasive Communication. Persuasion is more than convincing someone to agree with your point. It's about guiding others to see things from your perspective, to feel the way you feel, and to take action based on that shared understanding. Persuasion isn't manipulation. It's not about forcing your ideas on others. True persuasion is a conversation where both parties are engaged, where trust is built, and where mutual benefit is achieved. At its core, persuasion is about connection, connection between minds, connection between hearts, and connection between people. Effective communicators don't simply argue their case. They craft compelling narratives that speak to the emotions, values, and needs of the people they are engaging with. Understanding the psychology of persuasion. Persuasion is rooted in psychology. It is about understanding how people think, what drives their decisions, and how emotions play a central role in shaping their actions. When you speak, your goal is not just to deliver information, but to inspire change in how others think and behave. The best persuaders understand the inner workings of human nature, why people say yes, why they resist, and how to bridge that gap. To persuade, you must first understand why someone would be reluctant to accept your message. People often resist persuasion because of fear, distrust, or a sense of personal conflict. Overcoming this resistance requires a strategy that builds trust and reduces anxiety. Building trust and credibility. The foundation of persuasive communication is trust. Without trust, no amount of logic or reasoning will change someone's mind. Trust is the gateway through which all persuasive efforts must pass. To be persuasive, you must first establish your credibility. People are more likely to be persuaded by someone they trust, someone who has demonstrated reliability, expertise, and integrity. But trust isn't just about what you know. It's about how you make others feel. A persuasive communicator builds trust by being authentic, open, and transparent. When you speak with honesty, people feel that authenticity. It resonates with them, making them more likely to believe in what you're saying. Another way to build trust is by showing empathy. When you show that you understand and care about the other person's concerns, you build rapport. And rapport is essential for persuasion. People need to feel understood before they can be persuaded. When they sense that you understand their perspective, they become more open to your ideas, and when they trust you, they're more likely to listen and engage with your message, appealing to emotions. The most powerful tool in persuasion is emotion. While facts and logic are important, emotions drive human decisions. People make decisions based on how something makes them feel, not necessarily on how logical it is. This is why persuasive communication isn't just about presenting facts. It's about creating a feeling that resonates with the other person. Think about the last time you made a major decision. What was the deciding factor? Was it purely logical, or did emotions play a role in guiding your choice? In most cases, emotions weigh heavily in decision-making. As a communicator, you must learn how to tap into emotions in a way that enhances your message. You do this by telling compelling stories, by showing passion in your delivery, and by aligning your message with the values that are important to your audience. To persuade, you must make the other person feel something, whether it's a sense of urgency, excitement, belonging, or even fear. By connecting your message to emotions, you create a deeper impact that words alone cannot achieve. Framing and reframing the message. Framing is how you present information in a way that makes it more compelling and aligned with your audience's values. People don't just hear information, they interpret it based on how it is framed. A simple example, you can present a glass of water as half full or half empty. The same information, but the framing creates a different emotional response. In persuasive communication, framing is key. How you present your ideas influences how they are received. For example, if you want someone to see the benefits of a new product, Frame it in terms of how it will improve their life or solve their problems. If you want to persuade someone to take action on an issue, frame it in terms of urgency and importance. Reframing is the process of changing someone's perspective on a situation. If someone is resistant to your idea, you can reframe the situation to show them a different perspective, one that resonates more with their values, their needs and desires. By reframing a problem or opportunity, you can open up new ways of thinking that lead to greater acceptance of your message. The art of persuading through stories. As we've discussed earlier, stories are one of the most powerful forms of communication. People remember stories far more easily than they remember facts or statistics. When you communicate through storytelling, you connect on an emotional level. Your audience becomes part of the journey. They see themselves in the story, and this makes them more likely to embrace your message. In persuasive communication, stories are the bridge between logic and emotion. They help people see the personal relevance of what you're saying. They make abstract concepts tangible. They evoke empathy and understanding. The key to using storytelling in persuasion is making the story relatable. The best persuasive stories feature characters with struggles that the audience can relate to. Someone who faces adversity, overcomes challenges, and ultimately succeeds. You must also ensure that the story aligns with your message. A story should illuminate the point you're trying to make, not distract from it. It should be framed in a way that reinforces your key argument. Using persuasive language techniques. Words are powerful. The way you phrase something can change its entire impact. There are several persuasive language techniques that can help strengthen your communication. Ethos, establish credibility and trust. Pathos, appeal to emotions. Logos, use logical arguments to support your case. A balance of all three elements makes for a compelling argument. But emotions, pathos, often drive the final decision. People remember how you made them feel more than what you said. Another technique is repetition. The more often a message is heard, the more likely it is to be accepted. Repetition helps to reinforce your message and make it stick. You can also use rhetorical questions to engage your audience and encourage them to think critically. These questions guide the audience toward a conclusion you want them to reach. Creating urgency and scarcity. One of the most effective persuasion tactics is creating a sense of urgency. When people believe they need to act quickly, they are more likely to make a decision. Urgency can be created through limited time offers, exclusive opportunities, or emphasizing the consequences of not acting. This taps into the fear of missing out, FOMO, and motivates action. Scarcity also plays a role in persuasion. People value things that are in limited supply. If you can show that something is scarce or exclusive, it increases its perceived value and desirability. Be careful not to overuse this tactic, as false urgency or scarcity can lead to distrust. But when used authentically, it can be a powerful motivator. Influence without force. The most powerful persuasion comes from influence, not force. Persuasion isn't about pushing your ideas on others, but about guiding them to a decision that feels right for them. Effective persuaders listen to their audience. They adapt their message to meet the needs of the listener, finding common ground and aligning with their values. This creates a collaborative environment, rather than a confrontational one. Influence is built on trust, empathy, and respect. When you persuade, you don't overpower. You lead gently. You guide the other person to a place where they feel they have made the choice. But in reality, they've been gently influenced by your words, your tone, and your presence. Conclusion: the power of persuasion. Persuasion is not a skill reserved for salespeople or politicians. It's a skill that can improve your communication in every area of life. When you learn the art of persuasion, you unlock the power to shape outcomes, influence decisions, and create meaningful connections. Persuasion is about understanding human psychology, connecting with emotions, and communicating in a way that is authentic and compelling. It's about being able to move others to action, while respecting their autonomy and feelings. True persuasion comes from a place of empathy, clarity, and integrity. Mastering the art of persuasion is not just about convincing others. It's about inspiring change, fostering understanding, and building relationships that last. By becoming a persuasive communicator, you hold the power to influence the world around you with authenticity, respect, and impact.